This is the story of Celia, a slave. She was bought by Robert Newsom of Callaway County, Missouri in 1850. He raped her before he even got her home and continued to do so for the next 5 years. During those 5 years, she bore 2 of his children. In 1855, Celia was tried and convicted for the murder of Robert Newsom. One fateful night, Newsom tried to rape Celia again, but she had had enough. This is my 4th great-grandfather, Elijah Coyle. In the same year that Robert Newsom brought Celia to Callaway County, my grandfather owned about 240 acres near the Newsom place. According to the 1850 Missouri slave schedules, my grandfather also owned 6 slaves. The records show that he owned one 50-year-old black man, one 31-year-old black woman, and 4 girls. 2 of the girls, ages 7 and 4, are listed as black. The other 2 girls, ages 9 and 2, are listed as mulatto. There is really only one conclusion to come to about my grandfather. I can't help but fill in the blanks. These were not simply numbers on a census. These were human beings. And my own grandfather was probably every bit as evil as Robert Newsom was. The woman he owned probably received the same brutal treatment that Celia did. And the man he owned was probably her husband, a man who lived in anguish, unable to protect his own wife, and raising my grandfather's children as his own. In true Southern Belle style, my grandmother, Lucinda Lale, probably turned a blind eye. So why am I publicly telling my family's story now? Because it is why I do what I do. My family's dark past is what motivates me to try to help preserve the histories of minorities in the South. I have a huge problem with white people that say things like, "That was my ancestors, it wasn't me," or "I didn't own any slaves." Well, these are the arguments of people who choose to remain blind to their reality and their responsibility. The truth is this: in America, if you are white, you've enjoyed some degree of white privilege your whole life, whether you choose to see it or not. But this also means that if you are white in America, you must accept some of the responsibility for the horrific actions of the white people that came before you. It was their actions that bought you that white privilege. When the Founding Fathers established a democracy rooted in slavery, they did nothing but kick the can down the road, so to speak. Eventually, one generation would have to repay many generations of African Americans for the damage inflicted upon them. I'm saddened and mortified to tell you that the legacy of racism in this branch of my family tree was not truly broken until my generation. But the buck stops here. I do feel a responsibility for the actions of my grandfathers. Every time the police let me roll on by in peace. Every time I've probably gotten a job over someone else just because of the color of my skin. And every time my children were safer on the streets just because they are white. This is the white privilege that many white Americans deny exists, even though it is a luxury that their grandfathers gave them, and they benefit from it every day of their lives. This assignment asks me to imagine what future movements might look like. Well, this is my hope, that there will someday be a movement among white people in America, a movement in which we finally stand up and accept responsibility for the damage of our grandfathers, a movement that says we are sorry, but not only that, a movement that holds elected officials to the responsibility of repair, an insistence that billions of dollars in back paychecks for generations of unpaid labor, and billions of dollars for physical, emotional, and economic damages be paid to guarantee African Americans the same starting point in life as white Americans. And all of this starts with me. This is my 4th great-grandfather, Elijah Coyle. I'm so sorry for the damage that his actions have done to generations of African Americans, including those which I'm probably related to through him. I accept this responsibility. I refuse to be blind to my white privilege. Instead, I hope to use it to help destroy white privilege in America forever. It is my greatest hope that this is what one of the movements of the future will look like. I imagine that my political activism has many of my ancestors turning over in their graves, and in a really satisfying way that makes me smile.